And in our next series, one of our players is on a collision course with Gamers8. Who is it going to be? Will it be Cure or will it be herO? Will we get a second Protoss player through into Gamers8? Well, let's find out here. Joining me to my left-hand side to talk about our next series, I have Rotterdam and Artosis. Roddy, once again, we're kind of breezing through this day here. Good to get Classic on the board, though I'm sure you're happy to see at least one Protoss make it through so far.
Yeah, but I hope it's not just me. Come on, we have a beautiful game with 3 races, okay? So whenever we're doing qualifiers to go into a big offline event, obviously we want to see all 3 races being represented, but I never really had too many worries. Sure, first weekend didn't quite go the aliens their way, but this weekend we have plenty of good Protosses in the bracket, and I think we are about to add another one, but it's going to be close.
Plenty more Xeno threats. We will see if they're able to make it on through here as we have Cure and herO going up against one another. Let's talk about this versus here as we do have our next best of 5 on the way. Dan, these are 2 names you are very familiar with. You're casting them time and time again over in South Korea, and it's a belter of a series because Cure looked amazing going up against Creator in that first round, and herO's herO.
Yeah, you know, herO, you still have to give him the #1 Protoss slot in the world. But Cure, when Cure is on, he really has the best Terran versus Protoss out there. Like, when you think back to his GSL victory even, right? He did that by beating like 4 different world top Protosses, all with different styles. So Cure definitely knows what it takes. He's already shown some awesome TVP in this tournament, but you know, he is like a little bit volatile in his play. Occasionally, Cure shows up and plays some terrible games. Occasionally. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, which one are we going to get today? We'll find out. Roddy, what are your thoughts coming into this series?
Well, the initial thoughts are always like, all right, herO, best Protoss, the second best Protoss player in the world. He should be able to get the job done. But then if you really dive a bit deeper into it, his PvT is honestly very hit or miss, right? Because it's all so high risk, high reward. If everything lines up perfectly, it just looks fantastic. And it looks like a straight up nightmare to deal with as a Terran player. But quite often he does get a bit carried away. And one big mistake with the way that he likes to play, you lose a prism or one blink too far, and it can all come crumbling down. So it's actually very close. This is one of these series that you really want to hype up like nothing, because it could be by far and away the best series of the day, but it could also be some ugly games. I hope it's not the case. I'm honestly excited. For me, this is the highlight of the day.
Likewise, I think when you look at the names involved, when you look at the potential for the fixture, I definitely have to agree. We've got the map vetoes coming in: Ancient Cistern, Babylon, Altitude, Royal Blood, and Dragon Scales if we need it here. So for all intents and purposes as well, Dan, when you looked at kind of what Cure was doing against Creator yesterday, his playstyle looked kind of oppressive. It felt like Creator couldn't really find a gap, a weakness in what was actually going on, to the point where Creator had to go for those base trades. herO is a very different breed of Protoss, though, to what Creator is going to bring to the table here. So I don't know if Creator can get away with being the oppressive force that he was yesterday.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit harder against herO because he is willing to take those insane risks to try to get ahead. But I think that Cure's style, if he tries to maintain this style, is actually pretty well matched against that, because he's always treading that very thin line where it's like, I am actually macroing up and going for the later game, but applying that pressure. So if he can do that, but also really switch into heavy defense when herO comes after him with something insane, I think that is a day in which Cure is going to be favored.
Fair. Roddy, any retort, any rebuttal to that?
Well, Cure did win 3 out of the last 5 series that these two have played, and just historically it's been very evenly matched, and herO seems to be somewhat vocal about how he doesn't really enjoy playing against Terran, and I think that goes for a lot of Protoss players, but it's just an extreme matchup. It's very snowbally, right? If Protoss has a clean start, they get up to 3 bases, they're off and they're flying, but if just one thing goes the Terran player's way in the early game, and Cure has plenty of ways to get himself a little bit ahead, it can often go the other side, but it should really be fireworks.
All right, well, as you say, herO wasn't exactly keen about going up against Maru, and then he had to play him, and it didn't go very well. But let's see how it goes against Cure in this qualification match. Thank you, gentlemen. Time to head over to the casters here. It's a PVT to find out who moves on to Gamers8.
And we're all hoping that it is going to be the best match of the day. Two awesome players, one representing Protoss, who desperately needed another qualifier, another representing Terran, and a Terran who has an extraordinary TVP win record, I might add. I am Zombie Grove casting with Loco for the next two series. How you doing today, Loco?
I'm doing very well. I'm actually super excited for this match. I think I'm with the other guys as well. This is, at least in my mind, the most exciting game of the day. We already did see herO play a little bit of TVP yesterday when he went up against Creator. I know the boys just brought it up as well, but honestly, as good as Creator is right now, herO just looked on another level. He was just all over the map, hitting at multiple angles at once, and somehow, some way, managing to micro multiple parts. Like, he had his army split into two big balls, and he was microing both of them at the same time. Just really impressive stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the first times that I was truly impressed with herO's TP was actually something like 5 years ago, where he was microing 3 different armies consisting of Viking, Ghost, Bio in every single army. And I was like, okay, that's pretty freaking cool. But both players basically have their cool factor. In the bottom left of Ancient Cistern, we do spawn on top of this man. For DKZ, he is herO.
And his opponent up here in the top right in game number 1 of this best of 5 series, we have herO. Representing Abydos.
Yeah. So I mentioned that herO has a really good win record. In 2023, he is in an 80% victory rate against
80?
Protoss. 80%. He is 60-7 in matches in this year. So it's pretty good. You know, again, as always, those stats include some guaranteed 2-0s, right, against lesser known players, but plenty of very good players, both Korean and European and North American, all over the place. herO does play online quite a bit, as does herO. But herO remains at a measly 62% win rate against Terran. Actually pretty freaking good if you are on board the whole Protoss is having a tough time versus Terran lately.
No, definitely. So these two going up against each other this year so far, they've played 9 matches and 60% of them were won by herO. So he certainly seems to know what he needs to do against Protoss. And I think, yeah, Roddy summed it up really nicely, right? herO is really good against Terran, but it's very hit or miss. If he makes a mistake in the early game or he just slips up with his control, it can be over very quickly. And against somebody like herO, who's very strong defensively too, right? He's kind of got it all. It's going to be difficult to get damage done in the early game here.
herO seems to really have a handle on TVP, no doubt about it, even above some other Terrans. TVZ, I'd say it's a little meh, but TVP, absolutely. herO actually is probably the best right now, considering his win rate at the very least. But first, we got to talk about what's actually happening in this game number 1 of overall best of 5. It is going to be a 2-Rax opener, which, of course, is successfully hidden away from the probe scout because you just don't know what's following behind that second supply depot. So it could be factory expand, could be 2-Rax.
Yeah, exactly. So there's already a couple of Reapers out on the map right now. herO not using them aggressively just yet. He's hoping that he can catch some of those Protoss units that will be coming across here momentarily. herO going straight for that Stargate opener. Obviously, he's got a wide variety of builds that he likes to play. The Stargate is certainly one of them, something that he mixes in all the time. And, well, the Probe Scout is going to go back into the Terran's main base, but these Reapers, they will not be scouted.
First appearance coming in, 2 Adepts kind of close by, but, you know, 3 Reapers are going to demolish a probe line before the 2 Adepts can even chase them down with a shade. So 4 probes, and it is kind of unfortunate that the second Reaper did go down. I'm sure herO was hoping he could come back in later for a better backstab. Actually, 4 probes, and now you've reduced the threat to almost like non-existent. That could have been worse.
It definitely could have been worse, yeah. He could have microed that probably ever so slightly cleaner. He does know right now as well what the follow-up right here from our Protoss is going to be. herO's had that probe in the bottom right-hand corner for basically the entire game so far. That's the scouting worker that he sent across early on. This Reaper will be pushed back again as well, telling him to not come back. But now the Oracle goes straight into the main base of our Terran player, but the Marines were already waiting.
Yeah, the Oracle didn't pose very much threats, and I'm guessing herO knew that as well. Unlikely that you find a lot of damage with a typically timed Oracle. Of course, herO has to take a third base. So that does seem like it was pre-planned, but I'll also note that Oracle was the first time that herO saw that it was a follow-up into a 3-racks, which might seem logical after a 2-racks opener, but, you know, it could have also gone into 2-1-1, for instance. So that's still pretty important. I don't know if that's exactly why he'd pull the trigger on a hidden base, because especially because herO just does it so often. He's actually maybe too often. As much as I love it, like, herO does hidden bases a decent amount in StarCraft II the last 6 months.
Yeah, he certainly seems to be a fan of it, right? So there obviously are a couple games as well that herO played in this particular tournament, like the series against Maru. I'm sure Cure watched those games as well, so maybe he's just trying to mix it up a little bit, trying to keep the opponent guessing here. As long as he keeps up the pressure, it's quite difficult for Terran to scout this, and usually at this stage in the game of the TVP matchup, of course, Terran is going to be the one sitting back until they finish up a couple more upgrades, and these Oracles get to control basically everything. So I don't think the base in the bottom right-hand corner will be scouted anytime soon.
Doesn't seem that way. Kira actually having some... Oh, okay, there we go. Kills one of the Oracles. Taking the threat of the Oracles quite seriously, so building a missile turret in each mineral line, maybe fearing that herO would go into the multiple Oracles. Recall to get those probes down to the bottom right base. As you were saying, Kira probably not going to scout this anytime soon, and I'm in total agreement, but when he does enter into the natural, eventually sends a scouting unit forward and goes, okay, what's exactly going on here? He might have some question marks. Why are you still on 2 bases and, for instance, don't have a Colossus? Are you really going to be playing charge on 2 bases? No one really does that. No, you're very right. He's certainly going to be looking for that third base here very shortly. Cure already splitting up his army. That's exactly what he did yesterday against Creator, just moving this army around like it's, well, 2 separate forces, I suppose, trying to look exactly what is... yeah, he wants to figure out what's going on the other side of the map, so he could easily take out that base in the bottom right, but he simply doesn't have the knowledge of it right now. You're also chasing around that Terran army here for a little bit, keeping tabs of where it's located, and now Cure, yeah, alarm bells should start going off in his head here, because he's going to see that there's no third base, although the Oracle actually goes down. Oh, yeah, it's unfortunate there for herO. Very unfortunate, actually. He has very limited scouting otherwise, since the robo is only coming down now. It isn't like he has observers all over the map. So this has been confirmed. No third base. Stimming on the partial army. I don't need 50% of the army. This is going to do damage. Gets the shield battery right off the bat, looking for those probes, but it is also, again, going to figure that something is wrong. I think that's exactly why herO... Well, 2 reasons.
The Colossus. Sorry.
Yeah, to hallucinate the Colossus. Exactly. 1, maybe you do scare away the army, and 2, maybe you just convince them that you're going for a safe 2-base Colossus build.
Yeah, no, exactly. You already brought up the Colossus opener, right? That's one of the options that Protoss technically has at their disposal here. So maybe Cure saw that Colossus and he's thinking, okay, this is just a super safe approach right here from the Protoss, because he saw an hallucinated Colossus, but in reality, it's a hidden third base. Such a cheeky little play right there by herO. I also saw that Colossus wandering around in the natural for a little bit, right? The hallucinated one, making it look, I guess, like he wasn't controlling it properly, but I would imagine that's on purpose, just to make sure that the Terran player doesn't notice that the Colossus doesn't deal any damage.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to, you know, let it attack and then no splash damage comes down. You also don't want it to get attacked, which I think was successfully done, right? Because then it takes way too much damage as hallucination, if you're really paying attention. Scan of Cure does reveal a third base. Again, it might be well-timed if this was a very safe 2-base Colossus opener with just charge also pumped out quickly. The Warp Prism, unfortunately, is going to get taken down. Probably not a super good use of the Warp Prism and 4 Zealots. But Cure might not think he has a timing when he might. Again, expecting maybe now 3 Colossus, for instance, which would be what Protoss are usually going up to at this point.
Yeah. So Cure is very much so approaching this as if it's a standard macro opener right there from herO. He could have easily taken that base in the bottom right-hand corner, but he simply doesn't realize exactly what's happening here. He's also not necessarily the guy who will be flying around a lot of, well, for example, Ravens or Medivacs or something like that. I mean, he can certainly mix that in, but at least in that, or in this game so far, it's not the case. So he's just playing this as a regular macro game, assuming that the base that was just taken by herO is the third, but in reality, he's already got a third fully saturated for several minutes, and he's going up against 4-base Protoss, and that could be a gigantic misread because, yeah, look at the income advantage here. herO is outgrowing Terran very quickly.
Yeah, that's starting to get very dangerous indeed. Now, how many Vikings did Cure make before he stopped? Because, of course, the other fear is that he's going to go into something like 12 Vikings, which have been literally useless, or borderline anyways. I guess they can land. He did stop at 4, so either he's picked up on something or... Because I would say if you really did believe it was 3 Colossus, right, you would get at least 8. Pretty sure that would be the case. But either he's picked up on something or this is what he usually does and I just don't remember. But he is moving into EMPs. He is going to wait until he's maxed out, which is, I think, going to be better than, for instance, rushing headlong with 12 Vikings into someone who actually has Storm. So kind of like the best of a worst case scenario, I suppose, for Cure, who still is very much not really knowing what's going on. And okay, he's actually building more Vikings. So I mean, eventually they will be useful. That's kind of my point. Eventually their armies will both be the typical amazing late game Terran versus Protoss armies.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Cure has looked at basically every base at this point in the game, but he hasn't seen the one in the bottom right. So he's gone all over the map and he hasn't seen the ones in the corner. So he is completely not picking up on this. So yesterday he was playing a very aggressive style, right? Trying to hit the opponent at multiple angles at once. And I think in this game he's looking at this, he's like, you know what? I really don't even need to do that. If you're going to just play a super late third base, I mean, this isn't a ladder game. I could just, play a straight up macro game. I don't really need to take any risks. And I mean, it's not like he's in a terrible position or anything like that, right? He's still getting a very powerful army here. He's got that good transition coming up here as well. It is important that he doesn't commit too heavily into Vikings, but now he finally starts up a proper fight.
I mean, he just added 2 more and that was it. Like, either he's a little sus, and he scanned the army multiple times at this point, so I think he actually is kind of figuring things out. Or he's just kind of getting, fortunate, not building too many Vikings. And the army that he's segmented off was actually pretty good until the Zealots showed up. Does have to pick up and leave. But the main benefit from the way that herO has played here is that he doesn't have to worry so much about that mid game where Terran is definitely very strong, always has been, and perhaps particularly nowadays. And he should have a bigger bank, so he does still get ahead, even though Cure doesn't die or anything like that, right? Like, herO should still be ahead, but Cure absolutely has a chance to play out his mid to late game TVP very well. So close to finding that hidden base, yet so far.
Yeah, I thought for a second he was going to look for that pylon, right? Because Zealot suddenly came from the bottom right-hand corner. I thought he was going to look for a pylon that could have warped in those Zealots, but not the case. Instead, he's distracted over on the left side. He does seem to be winning that fight there for now, though, but a good couple force fields do come down. The Widowmine's not really burrowed here yet either, and now herO is coming in with the flank, too. He's going to be able to push back this army easy peasy, but in the meantime, Cure is also moving towards, well, what should have been a 5th or a 4th base right here for Protoss.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing for herO is that he's trying to get these, like, the Jaws closing act on a lot of Cure's little armies, and the Jaws never quite close. Like, Cure is able to escape with a decent amount of medivacs and ghosts every single time. Maybe not with this army.
Oh my god.
Disruptor kills more Zealots than anything else, but there you go. Again, he actually does manage to escape. Feedback shouldn't kill these medevacs, right? Yeah, so he's effectively escaped, I suppose. And then the other army comes back, and herO is not getting any of those beautiful capture moments that I think he's really trying to set up. Instead, he is ultimately getting a little out of position every single time.
Yeah, he's making the assumption he's going to be able to just outproduce the Protoss here eventually, right? So he needs to be very careful. He doesn't get too carried away. He's once again splitting up his units. That is incredibly powerful here. There's really nothing to protect this Nexus. At least some of the probes will get out. Though there's a couple Widow Mines over there being annoying too. Now there's Zealots also going into the natural. The High Templars do survive, but yeah, now we have a full base race scenario once again. We've seen so many of those already in this tournament.
That's true. Creator just was always in a bad position. And like, well, I guess I got no other option. Base trade time. In this game, herO was kind of in the same position where if this continued on, he would ultimately just be... he'd lose, right? He'd always be out of position. He'd always be coming back home after his Nexus was dead. So he just pulls the trigger on a base trade because there really was no other option and might have even been a little frustrated, let's be honest. Stalkers should be enough to clear this up, but it is going to be a trade, especially with those EMPs, and I believe the better upgrades for Cure as well. Yeah, and no even upgrades, so not too bad, but yeah, a lot of Stalkers went down. Cure did hold at home, and herO lost 2 Nexus. Thankfully, he has a hidden one, I suppose, but that is starting to run out of resources.
Yeah, I mean, he's at that base for about 10 minutes now, right? Yeah, it's definitely running very low. Cure still does not realize exactly what he's playing against, but does it even really matter? Those traits he's been taking are just so very efficient. He's already setting up the Liberator split here as well, so he is ready to go to the next stage of this match if he absolutely needs to. It is kind of funny, though, that he's still in such a good position after that incredible early game from herO. herO still struggling to really get an advantage in this match.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There is still a game left to be played, so I don't want to go too deep into the analysis mode, but it does feel like, weirdly enough, while yes, herO avoids that really painful attack timing around 7 minutes that Terran gets a lot of damage with, especially Cure, ultimately there was nothing truly gained from the way that he played. You know, Cure didn't fall for anything so much as he just kind of played regularly and was kind of rewarded for it. So again, herO was going to get away with maybe a bigger bank, but that did not help him with all of the engagements that went down, which now Cure is winning yet another one with a huge concave. EMPs did come out. A storm came out regardless, but didn't really get a whole lot. Disruptor's starting to miss everything as Cure splits, and this is going to be game.
Yeah, Cure is just looking absolutely incredible in this matchup right now. I mean, even when he doesn't have perfect information, even though he's probably scratching his head a little bit as to what exactly is going on in the game, he's just taking such amazing fights. Like, the probes are even being transferred away from that expansion right now. herO has essentially had that entire base. And even then, I mean, obviously he has to build all of those things at the cost of, well, resources that he could have spent at home, but still such amazing control right here coming out of Cure. He doesn't even really need to know exactly what he's playing against, because as long as he can make Marines, Marauders, Ghosts, and Medevacs, and with good micro, he can get a lot of damage done.
Yes, certainly displaying that here. And now it is game over, so I could talk about whatever the heck I wanted. Because before, the supplies were kind of even, and then all of a sudden, Cure with that battle jumped up 60-70 supply. There is the official tap out from herO as Cure takes game number 1. Despite some very clever play, I would say that that was one of the most effective covers of a hidden base that I've seen from anyone, including herO, in some time. Because a lot of the other times, he'd be aggressive, so that even if the Terran found the hidden base, he'd say, oh, we can't do anything about it. But this was covered as more of a macro defensive play, and it worked out, I think, you know, right? I think everyone agrees that Cure was fooled. It just, I think the better fool tactic, the one that herO wanted Cure to fall into, is building something like 12 to 16 Vikings way overboard, or pushing into him when he had Storm and Cure didn't get EMPs. But Cure just said, oh, I guess we're kind of going into like 3 base versus 3 base. Let's chill, let's relax, let's just get our perfect armies, and then I'll show you how good my control is. And herO couldn't keep up.
Yeah, no, you're very right. I think this game would have looked very different if he did decide to go up to like 12 Vikings, right? If this would have been an over reaction to a Mass Colossus transition or a really safe opener from Protoss, this would have looked very different. But Cure, even though he didn't have the perfect info, he, well, was calm and collected. I mean, this was really the only fight that didn't go great for him, it felt like, right? Like, there was the one moment where Protoss came in with the Zealot flank, but he essentially won every single fight we caught on the stream. And well, that one was also quite unfortunate, herO blowing up like 6 of his own Zealots. Yeah,
it's just that he actually had really good unit retention. Every time that herO thought he might be able to totally squash, you know, 50% of Cure's army, and then that would lead into a very good counterattack, Cure managed to save 30%. You know, and that just made it a little more difficult for herO to ever really gain that map control that he was looking for, and then to you know, win a base trade. Even when he decided I'll go for the base trade because nothing else is working out, Cure handled it so well. I'm actually a little shocked. I would love to go back in the replay and see how he defended it just like easy peasy lemon squeezy back in his natural, because I thought that was going to be a little bit more testy, and it really wasn't.
Yep. No, for sure. Cure, just world-class TVP. I was very impressed after the series yesterday against Creator, because Creator has been on fire over the last couple of months, right? Like, he's been looking incredibly good. And Cure looked at it once, he looked at it twice, like, you know what, I can just, outplay you. That's essentially what he did over the course of a couple maps. He just heavily outplayed the Protoss there, and today he's ready to continue against, well, someone of the caliber like herO, right? Considered to be the best Protoss player on the planet. And he's making it look pretty straightforward.
Yes, straightforward would actually be the the absolute correct word overall for that game number one. herO tried to take some twists and turns, and it's like he thought Kier was following him, so he's turning left and left and left, and then right and then right and then right. And Kier wasn't following him; he just was going to the same destination. So like they both arrive, and it's like,
yeah, but imagine that base was found though. Imagine that base was found a couple minutes earlier. That would have been
then
a
hero's really
disaster.
screwed. Yeah, absolutely. Game number two. Let's see what other tactics this man has. In the top left, it is herO.
And down here in the bottom right-hand corner of Babylon, we have Kier. Kier, of course, not taking a whole lot of damage right there in the early game of that previous match either. We did have the oracles going around and, well, poking here and there, but honestly, not that much damage coming out of herO. Curious to see if he decides to go for a Stargate opener once again. He obviously can play a little bit of everything, but the one unit that I feel like, at least in my mind, he really popularized again is the Blink Stalker. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that on a map like this.
hero's Twilight Council play is really, really good, and still one of my favorite ways to witness Protoss play. Not the 4-gate, not the dedicated Blink Stalkers, but rather just that 3-base push and pull. It really is quite fun, but while herO might be one of the best at it, he is also, funnily enough, probably one of the worst at it. Choosing some
It's very hit or miss.
Yeah, very questionable attack decisions that has definitely bit him in the butt. For instance, the start of this tournament for herO was last weekend. He faced Gumiho, and there was a little bit of that, oh, well, herO usually looks good here. Wait, what is he doing? Why? Okay, that wasn't really the best. So to try that versus Kier, who's even more rock solid than Gumiho, well, herO might be just the underdog, frankly, in this one.
So Kier decided to go straight into a reactor this time around. This is not something that herO actually saw. That reactor was built before he built any units, so he's relying on just an SCV scout right there instead. The probe, of course, is going to be coming back in for more, but I think that's Kier saying, yo, I'm just happy to make some defensive units here. I'll just absorb whatever you're going to throw at me, because I should be able to outplay you in the long run, right? And I mean, if he can keep playing a game like he did previously, I don't really see another outcome than Kier obtaining the victory, so I really like this strategy overall.
It does make you feel like Kier just wins this best of 5, right? herO gets this really great strategy, actually gets it to work, is like really the biggest thing, is that it worked, and then it was ineffective. So you're like, oh, well, maybe your mechanics can do it, but Kier is really just rock solid. I still think herO, the way that he can play the Protoss race, and we'll see if he does, but he can really unsettle even the steadiest of Terrans. So I would say even almost like that last game was not a typical herO game for many reasons, but one is that he never really got to be aggressive. By the time he wanted to be aggressive, he was maxed out. That's not usually what we would expect. So maybe something else that, herO is known for, the aggression with the Blink Stalkers, as you were saying, would lead to a little bit more of a tussle.
Well, this time around, he decides to go for the Phoenix start once again. That usually is a stepping stone towards Colossus, so maybe the build that he was pretending he was playing in the previous game, that would actually be kind of fun. We'll have to see exactly what his follow-up plan is going to be and how many Phoenixes he wants to produce. We've already seen him play a little bit of Phoenix as well, but he never really committed to that many of them. But yeah, it almost, you brought it up already, he's playing a little bit differently now than we have historically seen him play, at least over the last year or so. It almost feels like he's lost a little bit of that confidence, right? Like when you're really on point with your Stalker control and you're always getting in damage with your oracles, I mean, you play the game entirely differently, but herO is playing this way more cautiously than we normally see him play.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I think there's frankly, a good debate about what is the best Protoss playstyle, and we looked at the top 2 Protosses, Max Pax and herO, really, and they both are still very well known for their aggression. But then we're seeing herO, one of those leading Protosses, fall back into some more macro-based play, certainly strategical. Last game was more strategy. This game, it is actually 4-gas Phoenix Colossus, so what we expect to be more defensive. It could have its moments later on, but right now, of course, just staying at home. So it is very possible that herO has just been smacked around a little bit too much, trying to be aggressive over the last 3 or 4 months, and has decided Terrans are too good against it now. Like, I got to try and play the other style again.
Yeah, no, I think you're very right. I I think overall Terrans have stepped it up when it comes to their defense, right? You can see it very clearly as well with their splits against Disruptors. I feel like over the last couple of years that has gotten so much better. And I can imagine when you get, well, shut down every single time you try to go for an aggressive build for a week or two, at some point you're like, okay, I mean, it worked in the past, but it's no longer working for me right now. I guess I'll go for some different strategies instead. I don't know if, the time to experiment, though, is right now, especially when you're going up against herO, who's now coming in with a medevac drop against somebody who's playing Phoenixes. This isn't really supposed to do a lot of damage, but it's already getting way too much damage.
Yeah, the problem is that if the Phoenix aren't in position and unloads, then that is actually a decent amount of damage, potentially. Guardian Shield is a hell of a drug, though, against the Marines. The Marines do not have combat shields, so they're really not the best. It was entirely because herO was out of position that this got any damage whatsoever. Thankfully, he wasn't so crazy out of position that it killed, 20 probes. 6 probes, really not that impressive, actually. herO did get, ultimately... Well, bopped maybe is too strong of a word. 2 Phoenix did go down after all, but he did get pushed back.
Yeah, herO wasn't entirely sure what he was playing against either, right? So he just kind of went in with the medevacs. If those Phoenixes would have been in position, that would have looked entirely different. He was forced to recall right there as well. Now we have the one set Phoenix going across the map, but at the very least, he's been using those Phoenixes and the units that he's built so far to go up towards the Colossi tech. So the Colossus will be coming up here very soon. We have the extended thermal lens already about 80% of the way done as well. And that's always a good moment, right? The only problem, though, is that Terran still has that 7-minute or so attack coming up here. He could certainly start moving across the map. Maybe he's going to wait until +1 infantry weapons is done, but there is that one moment, right, where the Colossi don't really have a whole lot of protection just yet, and sometimes the Marauders just eat everything.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Definitely one of the weakest points of PvT right now. However, since herO did go for a 2-1-1 opener, that's what it was, and he probably thought he was getting away with it too because he wasn't being scouted, and it failed, that really has pushed off what could have been a way more streamlined, typical 2-base Terran build, right? One, like a 3-Rax opener, for instance, we did last game, or even just the 1-1-1 into Woodmine drop into immediately to barracks production for Marauders specifically. So his Marauder count is not as impressive as it maybe would have been at exactly 7 minutes than maybe some other builds. But 11 at 7.5 minutes is still pretty good. And Vikings on the way as well. But just trying to point out that herO actually does get the opportunity to go up to like 3 Colossus and spread out his army and then add on apparently Disruptors quite quickly. So he's not going to have an upgrade or charge anytime soon. And that's the downside, I guess. But Disruptor can, get Hail Mary shots.
Yeah. Well, we've already seen herO split so far in the series. I feel like the Disruptors got more damage done against the Protoss army in that previous game than it did against the Terran. That being said, though, yeah, we do have the Colossi out right now, and when you have that buffer in front of the Colossi, it becomes a little bit more comfortable to play as well. The Disruptors, oh god, that Widowmine, against the Hallucination. The Disruptors prioritized here before the upgrade, so we don't have charge started until just now, and the same for the +1 upgrade. +1 has already finished for herO just now, and I think that may very well be the moment where he decides to test the waters on the other side of the map. Phoenix is sleeping on the job. Okay, herO's army is actually marching back. He doesn't really need to fight, right? Like, yesterday we saw him playing a little bit more aggressively, targeting the low HP Phoenix there as well, but he doesn't really need to play too aggressively. He's already outgrowing the Protoss slowly but surely, and yeah, if he just sits back and he maxes out, he'll probably feel way more comfortable.
Yeah, once again, we're reaching a point where I think both players can absolutely say, for both of us, waiting until we're maxed out is probably better. So herO doesn't get to do any kind of bullying with Colossus range that you might see in some other PvTs, and herO doesn't get to do his multi-pronged attacks with, mass Marauders. He's going to probably wait again until he's got EMPs and a good Viking count to really engage, but doesn't mean that you can just stay at home. I mean, certainly Terran players are supposed to be a little more active on the map, trying to scare the Protoss opponents. But herO also, I would say, wants to be a little more active with his Phoenix. They really have done very little in this game. Literally, their main job, protecting against 2 medevacs, they failed, so...
Yeah, no, for sure. They haven't really been putting in that much value. And again, herO is playing this very cautiously, very laid back, very unlike the herO we've seen over the last year or two. So here we go. herO ready to go with a big push right now across the map. Previously, his control against this Protoss army was absolutely phenomenal. This is, however, a really tight choke point, so he needs to be careful. Vikings trying to get as much damage done as possible. EMP going down on a lot of those Protoss units in the front. He needs to stim and get on out of there. And once again, the only units hit by the Purification Nova are the Zealots.
The Vikings now get free reign on the Colossus, so the Archons are going to get, oh my god, Disruptors got pushed to the front, so that was sniped down. I was going to point out the Archons are getting pushed to the front and getting sniped down too, and this is just a perfect engagement from herO. herO, I mean, he was down in supply, and he had the choke to work with, and then just chased after, I would say, far too long. I think you basically had to just like turtle up and be like, thank God herO can't kill me. Thank God herO can't kill me. And he kind of pushed out.
Top-level Terrans have gotten so good at microing these armies. It's actually insane. He's getting so much value.
Yeah.
Ghost waiting on the other side of that hill as well to throw an EMP and effectively just, well, push that Protoss army back single-handedly. The supply count, though, looking so good. herO only just now starting up a 4th Nexus. At this point, honestly, this is herO's game to lose, and really not even that much has happened, right? I mean, we've seen a couple mistakes here and there, but herO's just outplaying herO.
Yeah, to your point, you're bringing up the micros are so much better, and I absolutely agree with that. I would say it's not maybe micro that you would be usually talking about. Sometimes we say micro, and instantly what comes to mind is like, you know, god tier splits and baneling snipes. It was more just control of the engagement. herO basically baited, I would say. He baited herO to chase after him, like, ooh, don't chase me, pretty boy. And then, you know, herO chased, and he's like, gotcha! Because herO had expended all of his important units, basically his disruptors, and then put them on the front line while he's trying to retreat because they're slow. So, you know, herO just, he really plays, he's playing herO like an instrument. Like, herO's the one trying to do something sneaky and trying to do something, you know, even standard, and then herO's like, no matter what you do, I am going to control you. You follow me.
So herO is kind of stuck right now at 170 supply, but he is finally going to be able to push beyond that. And being able to max out is going to make this game a little bit easier. herO is sticking around on 200 supply because he can't go over that. He's going into the 2-2 upgrade, so he's got that going for him as well. I wouldn't mind seeing one more warp in right here for herO before he engages, because there's just way more Terran units out.
Dude, the concave that's being set up and herO still moves in. Like, I don't know, man. Okay, one disruptor shot was, well, decent. Actually, not even that impressive. And now the disruptors are once again vulnerable, but this disruptor shot is going to hit. Okay, so a bit better on the disruptor shots and trying to push that army into the choke. However, all of the big splash damage units are already taken care of. So herO remaining with a lot of bio, of course, pushes us back and takes game number 2. Again, just overall so dominating from herO. He is so good at this matchup.
I am so impressed right here by herO. He is playing such an amazing style of TVP. I mean, playing it differently than he did against Creator early on in this tournament, but or earlier on in this tournament that was played yesterday. Just doing phenomenally well right here against, well, Protoss in general. Yeah, I don't even really see exactly what herO should do differently here, right? I mean, he just needs to do everything he's doing, but then slightly better. But obviously, that is not an easy task.
No, I certainly wouldn't know what to tell herO. You know, if I was going up on the platform, being like, "All right, buddy, you got this." He's like, "Well, do I?" And
Every
I'm like,
mistake
"I honestly
you make,
don't
make it."
Yeah, exactly. Remember that mistake you made? Don't do it again. And certainly, he could have literally slapped down the 2-1-1 opener, and I think that would have undoubtedly given him a lead. Yeah. But he didn't. It was kind of a trade, especially because herO managed to kill those 2 Phoenix before losing all of his army. So I guess herO really, the third game's got to be super aggressive, is what I would guess. You know, you're gonna go extreme one way, go extreme the other way, and just pray, because I think some prayer is necessary to beat herO here.
This was honestly the best case scenario though for herO, coming in here, finding that army split up, getting some really good disruptor hits. The Colossus gets to fire many times before it ultimately goes down, but herO just has way too much stuff. That was still like 180 supply versus 200 right there from the Terran, and yeah, just a brilliant game right there from herO from start to finish. Now herO will need to win 3 games in a row, and if he keeps playing the way that he's playing in this series so far, I just don't see that happening.
No. Nothing in those 2 games told me like, well, if only this happened or if only that happened. The only what ifs that I've been giving is if herO basically messes up, if herO gets over eager. And one thing I gotta say about herO is that I would never pin him as the type to get overexcited and to actually over dedicate. He's usually very calm and just waits for his moment. And that has been displayed in these 2 games as well. So I don't really. herO's got to come up with something really, really special, which he's done before, but I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I would like to see some of that Blink Stalker control, right? On the previous map, it's a little difficult to pull that off. So I'm not exactly sure what map 3 in this series is going to be, but yeah, Blink Stalker play is something that he is incredibly good at. So far, he's been shying away from that a little bit in this tournament, maybe losing a little bit of that confidence we were talking about earlier. But he really should be the aggressor in my mind. If he's just sitting back waiting for Cure to come at him, I just don't see this going well.
Yes, I do agree with that, although we do pop up on altitude, so in the largest maps. Let's see what herO does with this one. In the top right, down 0-2. It is herO.
And his opponent playing phenomenal Terran versus Protoss. It is Cure.
And I am thinking a lot about what Cure has been doing, and I guess I do have an idea, all right? I'm going to tell you what they're doing. He's going to win, and it's going to be amazing. I do think threatening a 4-gate is a good idea. Unfortunately, I think it would have been the best idea to do it in game 1, just to say that I can do this and need to respect it. But what Cure has been doing has been weak, I believe, to 4-gate, right? So he's been opening up with a lot of racks, heavy pressure. So the first game was 2 racks into 3 racks, and then the second game was like a 2-1-1 opener, basically. None of those builds include tanks. So yeah, like a 4-gate versus 3 racks can be a little weird because there's basically one moment that the Protoss has before the bio gets too much, but then the second game, I definitely think that would have been weak to a 4-gate. Again, just like the idea posing in Cure's mind would have done something, I suppose. Because I do kind of want to say that Cure's been like getting away with his builds. As much as herO got away with a hidden nexus, which sounds so much more drastic, Cure's kind of been getting away with whatever he wants to do in his home.
Yeah. No, he's been very much so in the driver's seat of this series so far. He's been able to do whatever he likes, and herO's just sort of absorbing every attack. He's not really taking a whole lot of chances other than, I guess, that proxy base, but yeah, other than that, not really all too crazy. He's going to look around as well, because obviously Cure at this point, I mean, he's a 2-0 ahead at the best of 5 series. He can certainly go for some proxies if he wants to. So herO may be a little bit concerned in this game, once again, at least a little bit cautious about the fact that there could be aggression headed his way. Turns out, though, nothing all too crazy this time around for Cure, as he's opening up with what seems to be a 1-1-1 so far.
Yeah, actually, he's finally going into straight up 1-1-1. So we'll see what the factory is going to
Yeah, you never know.
do. It's kind of hidden off to the side, which of course I like. I think there's no reason to just let the... Well, is it?
Okay, I was going to say, that would have been so funny if you just walked straight in, but...
Yeah, but there's no reason to just let someone see it. Even if we would say it's a very typical thing, it goes into What Am I drop, you know. And this Marine's going to take care of the probe, and it looks like... Is he just going to go into a Hellion attack?
Yeah, he may as well.
Scouting.
Yeah, he could be a scout, or he may go straight into medevac. We'll have to see what he decides to go for. herO does go Twilight Council this time, so no more Stargate play, just straight into a Twilight Council. He's going to be playing some of that Blink instead, which I, personally I'm a big fan of, especially when herO does it. But as you've already pointed out earlier, it is very hit or miss, right? Sometimes he just seems to deal so much damage with those Stalkers, and you're looking at it and you're wondering, okay, what could anyone even do? And the next game he plays, he loses 2 Stalkers here, 3 Stalkers there, and suddenly it looks incredibly weak. It is hit or miss, so you're gonna have to be on point with your micro here, herO, but straight into Blink we go.
Let's see if he goes into a 4-gate. I don't know if Altitude is really the ultimate best map for it, but...
No.
Again, I think it's kind of the... Yeah, it's just the idea of something that is there, whether it's a little bit less impactful. Now he's gotten a bunch of gases. Well, I was looking at Cure's build anyways, and I was very... I just told herO maybe he should try a 4-gate, and then Cure's like, yeah, doing a very good build against a 4-gate, building tanks.
Do, yeah.
Exactly, so it would have been bad. So I guess I'm glad hero's not doing it. But Cure will be heading out with a Marine drop, and the Hellion will just be used for some scouting. So it, could see it. Is it a 4-gate? It actually is not going to be able to scout, though. Nice little plug up in the wall for herO.
Yep, Hellion not really getting a whole lot done. Observer going the wrong direction as well, as we do have a Raven right now on the back of this, too, for Cure. Something that Terran players have been enjoying quite a bit, too. Stalkers getting in position if they are going to be able to... Okay, if they would be able to snipe this right away, that would be amazing. And that may have been very well what herO needed here. Did he even notice? He's just gonna, okay. But for a second, he was gonna move everything away here.
Yeah, please don't do that. Although it's not a very potent drop, right? These aren't stimmed Marines, so you'd have a lot of time to react. I mean, better not let them in, because herO is doing something tricky. A 2-base, what will be a Storm build, that's why you got all this gas. You know, uncommon. I think, you know, Classic tried something similar, and the casters talked about how this fast a Storm actually has a decent amount of vulnerability. It's fragile, where Storm is super overpowered in the pleb leagues, you know, and it's really difficult to play against these pros, especially Cure. Get a couple of Marauders in their mix, get the micro, and it just doesn't look very effective. So, no, wait, I mean, Cure's going to figure this out, so we'll see.
As in, like, bronze to Grandmaster, right?
No, absolutely. Literally, like, if you're not a pro, Storm is pretty freaking good.
Yeah, exactly. It's always kind of funny, right? When you, here the pleb leagues and Grandmaster League is included. But you're very right. Storm is incredibly good up until the pro level. It seems to deal a lot of damage to everyone on the ladder, but not so much at this level of play. And Cure has already been microing like a champ. Now, obviously, there's a Prism on the back of this too, so there's certainly a chance that herO is going to drop a couple of those Templar into the mineral lines. And that is one of those things where you have about, well, 0.2 seconds to react as a Terran player, and if you're not reacting in time, you will lose most of your SCVs.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that idea. That's a pretty cool idea. It is a bit difficult, though, for herO to choose basically where to put the Warp Prism, right? So whether it's for Storm drops, hey, good call, or it's for Charge Law, drops, the point is then it might not be at home defending, or it might get sniped and they have to rebuild it, which is a pretty penny. Scan from Cure is absolutely necessary. Cure, actually, if you looked at his base while we were talking about what herO was doing, he was well set up to defend a 4-gate. I think he was afraid of the potential. So that, is something. But then if it goes along the idea of that Nexus, it doesn't matter if herO, got a strategy going for him. Cure's still going to win. Oh, but the SCVs, there you go. 10 of them go down. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah, no, that was an excellent engagement right there for herO, getting finally some kills on the board, right? Like, he's not been able to get much done in these games at all, but now he can finally sort of breathe again. He hasn't really taken a lot of damage. Maybe he's a little upset he could have gotten the feedback off on that Raven up north a little quicker, but overall, he is in a relatively comfortable spot right now. Then again, though, Mules are pretty good, all right? Third Command Center coming up on the back of this too. Cure is not out of the water, or he's not out of this game by any stretch, but this is certainly a better beginning right here for herO than we saw previously.
Yeah, I think we can officially say that with all those SCVs dying. Before the SCVs, I was still a big believer in Cure just winning anyways, and I still am, actually. but it's like, no, this should definitely be good for the Protoss, and then Cure just doesn't care. Dropping to the third base, kind of effective, honestly. Storm it's decent to help out against drops. The problem is that like a single Colossus, you can't just depend only on that single unit. You need something to protect it. So Cure does manage to get a couple of probes and evacuate for the most part.
Yeah, you end up storming your own units, right, if you're not careful. Storm, of course, dealing friendly fire. Colossi don't, unless you, tell them to, which is usually not what you want to be focusing on. Okay, some good feedbacks. Getting the snipe on that would have been really nice. One Widowmine hoping to catch some of those probes on the transfer, maybe. Okay, he does get the medevac in the end, but yeah, this also gets cleaned up pretty easily. Still, though, for herO's normal game, this still feels rather passive.
Yes, I think I would agree with that. But I love that there's at least something. It's definitely a change from the last two, where herO is the one effectively using his harassing unit, the Warp Prism and the High Templars, and Cure is not doing anything. But I think the problem for me is that I know the real meat and potatoes of this game is going to occur in about a minute when Cure is ready to move out. And then is herO going to be able to defend that? He loses the Warp Prism, which I was talking about is extremely dangerous, that he's still going to commit to the attack. Tank's so well set up. This is such a small army. Please no.
Yeah. There's no way for him to reinforce this right now other than by warping in units at home. He decides to go for the full-on recall anyways. So these two medevacs here certainly being nice, even though one of them ends up going down. But you already brought it up. If you lose that Prism, it just takes the wind out of your sails, right? Now you have to remake that Prism again, and Terran gets to do whatever they like here for at least a couple of minutes, and immediately Cure fires up the Ghost transition. He's just playing a slow and methodical game. Maybe a couple minutes ago he lost some workers, but if you look at the worker count right now, you really can't tell.
Nope, it's even favorable for Cure, as he also kills a couple of probes of the Auditor harassment. Also has that medevac from the very beginning, still set up to do something. I think he might have forgotten about it, to be honest, and that's fair enough. But yeah, that pullback, that recall was exactly the time that Cure needed to actually be safe against this. Now he has so many ghosts that it is... I mean, it could still be a struggle to defend, but it's so much easier with 6 ghosts than, 1 or even 0 up against someone with Storm.
Zealot's forced to be warped in right here in the main base. As Cure once again is leaving. This is just to be annoying, right? So EMPs are going to be incredibly important. The spellcasters here can decide the outcome of this game. If Cure can EMP the Protoss army here, and most notably the High Templar, he's going to be in a good spot. Zealots end up taking quite a bit of damage there too. Okay, he gets the Vikings and he gets out.
Well, he lost the Warp Prism again, so Cure had a missile turret, right, and the Vikings. So that was very effective at doing what it, again, needed to do, which is just buy time, because otherwise that fight wasn't the best for Cure. He was awfully bunched up, and he did not take out all of the storms. There he goes now, preemptively doing so. He scans ahead, sees that there's still 2 in the pocket at the very least. His tanks are sieged up. He's still got some EMPs, and he's still dropping. Every time that herO moves in, he also makes sure to have something on the other side of the map.
This is going a whole lot better for herO than we saw in the previous couple games of this series. There we go. Once again, a large storm connecting with most of the army. Now donating a couple of those Protoss heavy hitters here for no apparent reason. I guess they were caught behind because of that drop you were bringing up. The drop eventually did get pushed back. But at the very least, yeah, Cure once again gets a little bit of time to breathe here. He's trying to take control of the Watchtower. He much prefers being the aggressor in a game like this. Matter of fact, drop here that was previously in the main base. Oh, well, don't fly it over there. I thought we were going to drop it at the mineral line. There you go.
It looks like an F2 to me, honestly, but Cure is still micring, so he drops out the medevac and is trying to take this fight. Widowmines are not going to pop off, and tanks are not sieged, so herO with just some Zealot reinforcements really catching Cure, actually, finally being overly aggressive, something I said he wasn't keen on doing, he wasn't likely to do. Absolutely, he got a little too far ahead of himself, and herO's more basic army, even without the EMPs, is very intimidating.
Yeah, he's now going to pull the trigger. He wants to obtain the victory in a game here, and he may very well get it done. Now, the prism is nowhere to be... because it got... Oh, my God. Okay, well, that should seal the deal. Anyways, if there were reinforcements coming in that one warped in the middle of this fight, I think it would be GG, and it is going to be GG regardless. herO had a rocky start in this series, but he gets a point on the board.
I like it. I do like it. I think the... Well, I mean, a couple of things. I think herO's build was a little more intimidating to Cure. We definitely felt more so that Cure had to respond to herO. He built a very defensive setup that looked very much like he was paranoid of a 4-gate. And so that alone might still not have been enough given Cure's prowess in the matchup, but then he also loses 11 SCVs to the storm drop. And it's altitude, so even if you thought he might have an opportunity to counterattack at any given point, it takes forever. So, you know, he's the one that's being controlled, and herO just plays a bit of a fast and momentum-based style. As long as he's got one storm in his back pocket, he can stay on the map like that. And if he doesn't, hopefully Chargelet reinforcements save his butt, which they absolutely did, and then caught Cure being too aggressive.
Here we have a replay of some of those storms we saw in this game. I think the first storms we saw in particular were very good. The ones that we just had a look at almost turned the tide in this game once again in favor of Cure. But yeah, overall, really nice game right there by herO, and hopefully this will allow him to get some of that confidence back, right? He seemed just very cautious and very protective in this series so far, but maybe in this after this match, he's feeling it a little bit better once more.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think he gets such a strategical game going for him again. herO really is trying to throw out the kitchen sink in terms of strategies and trying to trick Cure. And in the first 2 games, Cure's just straight and narrow approach ended up still being totally fine. But finally, you know, if he had known for a fact that his opponent was going to go into 2-base storm, you know, absolutely Cure would have been very different. Or even if he had figured out faster that it wasn't a 4-gate, that game could have still been different. But he was locked up for a very long period of time, then tried to play the macro game, and I still gave him a lot of credit to win because he's Cure, but herO thankfully showing that aggressiveness ended up winning out.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he decides to go for any 4-gate blink styles in this particular series as well, right? In the previous game, that would have been a terrible idea, but in the first 2 maps of this best-of-5 series, it would have worked out quite nicely, I think. Either way, here we go. Our 4th game in this best-of-5 series. We find ourselves on Royal Blood. Spawning right here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have herO.
In the top right, as the blue Terran, he is Cure.
Nothing too aggressive to start things off here. I'm always looking at the minimap, right? I'm always secretly hoping, especially when they start setting up rally points somewhere, or sorry, camera hotkeys somewhere in the middle of the map. herO just had his vision there. That we're going to see something a little cheeky, but I don't think that's going to be the case here. If anyone is going to get aggressive, at least with some early game cheese, it would probably be Cure, but he seems to be happy just to play that macro game.
Cure is generally macro to me. I don't know if you've been seeing too much of his cheeses, but
No, very rarely, but you know,
yeah.
a man can dream.
yeah, I know. 2 racks and a TVZ. Oh, watch out. It's pretty much as far as he goes. So, yeah. But herO, open up with the double gas. Does seem like maybe he's got a little bit of that confidence back. He's finally unsettled Cure. Cure's not just getting to do whatever he wants to do. And he's going to maybe continue with some earlier aggression even.
Yeah, losing 3-0 to Cure after losing 3-0 to Maru would be kind of bad for your confidence, right? So, okay, he's going to plant the second pylon right over here.
Oh my gosh, he's going to get a Nexus again, isn't he? He's going to proxy Stargate into a Nexus. He does this so often.
Yeah, he does this quite a bit. We've seen him do it from the other side on Royal Blood as well, where he builds the Nexus on the right side of these minerals. So hopefully no, don't. Okay, we're going to go straight Nexus there? Oh, that's what we're doing.
Apparently.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I guess the double gas is going to be useful to fake out something aggressive, right? So
Yeah.
that would explain that.
He's going to go straight into the Adept here. SCV Scout is going to come in. He's like, hey, everything is looking pretty good, but we see a Cybercore. We don't see a Nexus. What in the world exactly is going on here? So Curious playing that guessing game. He did have a unit out on the map. He's looking around with the Reaper. Yeah, he wants to figure out what's happening, but he hasn't seen the golden minerals yet. Now, I don't know if Cure has figured out yet that in game number 1 there was a proxy base. I have no idea if he looked at the replay or if he just been thinking about it a little bit more, but herO has already shown us proxy bases in this series, so it's got to be something that's flashing through your mind.
I would think so. I was just going to say straight up, yes, let's check the SCV Scout because this is so common. herO does this a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not even the first game being in Hidden Nexus is also just, a reminder if you weren't remembering. So of course you're going to check this. But the thing is, as much as it could just be a fool's errand from herO, he's done it too many times and he's going to get punished for it. I think herO has come to expect it to be scouted and he uses it to really confound the Terran and be like, are you going to push over to the right side? No, I'm going to be prepared there. You're going to push over to the left? No, I'm actually prepared. It's almost like a bait is what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah. I think herO knows he might be scouted, and he's prepared to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, it's very easy here as Terran to get overly aggressive, right? Like, you almost have to treat this just as a regular base where maybe most of your aggression is headed to. But if you get too carried away harassing this, it can oftentimes, force you to fall behind. There's only a handful of mineral fields here, so even when this expansion is fully saturated for Protoss, the only real difference really is that it requires less probes to mine. It's not like he's suddenly getting a huge boost in economy. Okay, this is actually pretty nice as well right here for herO.
Yeah,
I got 2 probes though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess the Reaper did its job effectively. Still nice to be cleaned up, and then also cleans up the Hellion prior to it doing any damage. Hellion was more maybe for additional scouting as well, which it did scout correctly. Everything that went down, so Robo, 2 gateways, Blink. There is a 4th added on. I would say Cure knows to be scared. Hold on. Nope. No, he doesn't. He's not getting any tanks. So that's bad news.
Yeah, that is going to make this follow-up very tricky. herO is settling into his comfort, right? He likes going for that Blink Stalker style. And one way to pull off a proxy base, and he may very well go for double proxy gold. Let's go. One way to pull it off is to just be on your opponent's face. If you're just constantly on their side of the map and you force them to play defensively, they obviously can't do too much. Now, don't lose. Okay, don't. That could be a little bit tricky.
Yeah. All right. So here's the order of things. I'm just going to say, first off, I actually think that Cure might be onto this because this is something that herO has done before. Literally the Nexus to 4-gate to other Nexus. But what has happened is that he scouted a 3-gate, might have thought that it was being used defensively because, you found my gold base, like, I got to prepare, isn't accounting for a 4-gate and then is going to get, punished. Or he does know what's going on, says, I don't think you'll commit all that much to the 4-gate, and then I can immediately punish you because you are taking another Nexus. And if so, then Kjær just like really knows his opponent. But let's watch these Stalkers and see what the micro of herO can do.
Yeah, so far it's been very, very good. Here's the Stimpak being activated, but no Medivacs out just yet, so these hurt quite a bit. For now, though, Kjær just wants to push this back. Like you said already, he doesn't have any siege tanks out, so defending this can be a little bit tricky. herO, in the meantime, by the way, also taking that gold base on the left.
Yes, exactly. So the thing about 4-gate versus a 3-rack, which is basically is what it turned into, is that the 4-gate can exhaust through 3 racks prior to Medivacs being out. But there's a very limited time for it, honestly. Like, eventually the bio does get better, pound for pound, right? And then the Protoss Bling Stalkers are very ineffective, so you really got to have time for those charge lots. So Kjær is, you know, at this point, obviously forced to try and play that game. Wouldn't mind hit the Warp Prism. Is out very, very weak, but still Stalker's going to get the SCVs. It looks like Kjær has reached that point of no return, I suppose, for the Protoss player, which the bio is now better. But herO, if he can control the situation for long enough, can get the charge, can get to gateways, and can saturate his 3rd base.
Yeah, this is what we know herO for, right? Being in the opponent's face, controlling the fights as much as he possibly can, and just honestly taking the wind out of Kjær's sails. In the first couple games of the series, Kjær basically got to decide the pacing of the match, and that really isn't the style that herO usually is known for. So he's just poking over here, trying to snipe whatever he can while building up a really nice economy. Even though the golden minerals are not to be, well, overestimated, they're also pretty good if you have 2 full mineral lines. The only expansion, I guess, or the only problem here is that an expansion on the right is going to start mining out already in just a minute or 2.
Yeah, and if you do look at the overlay, whenever there's a red arrow, it favors who it's pointing to. A little bit of micro being displayed. There are no arrows, or very infrequently arrows, so hero's not dominating the economy quite yet, but here come the charge lots added into the aggression, something that Kjær was not quite prepared for, but very quick reaction. Pulls back the army, pulls the SCVs. These are unupgraded regular gateway units, so Kjær's army is still supposed to be better, just needs a few more units to help out. And there's the blink forward again. Charge lots come in, SCVs pulled a little more awkwardly this time around, as Kjær also starts to display some micro, some fancy footwork, dragging those Marauders behind, picking them up with the Medivacs. SCVs will be lost, but if Kjær can hold on to a solid army size, then it will eventually demolish herO's army, but it's all about having the right numbers.
Yeah, and that's exactly what herO is trying to avoid right now. Coming in with, well, the Archons and, of course, the charge slot, the Prism. Okay, the Prism needs to be careful, though. Oof. I'm always concerned that it ends up going down here, because that really shuts down this fight for the Protoss player. But he is just warping in as many units as he can, using those golden minerals to his advantage. Then again, though, Kjær has really created quite a nice army here, right? That army is not to be underestimated.
Kjær is actually letting some micro mistakes by, you know, could be picking up maybe some of these Marauders that are being focus fired. It's very, very small points. It's a very tall ask, but that's something that Kjær would have needed to do to make sure he doesn't get overwhelmed. And unfortunately, it looks like herO has done all that damage necessary to cut down the number of bio for basic gateway units to overcome them, as herO now takes a very good supply lead, and the number of units on herO's side of the map just continues to dwindle.
Okay, and this is exactly what herO needed. He was struggling in game number 1, struggling in game number 2, and then in game number 3 and 4, he has been in the driver's seat. He's been trying his very best to take control of the pacing of the game, and as soon as he does, he seems way more comfortable. Only 19 SCVs remain. I think Kjær is just trying to make one army, hopefully, yeah, have his opponent miss micro, maybe snipe the Prism, something like that, and then go for a really big push towards the other side of the map. herO realizes it, though, and he can actually go back and play defensively if he wants to.
Yeah, he can. And the way he's using that Warp Prism is, I think, probably giving Kjær some heart attacks. Like, do you have High Templars? Do you? It's just charge loss, but still. Kjær is respecting the possibility. You can see him splitting and pre-splitting.
Yeah, he's trying his best to make sure that he doesn't lose any of these units unnecessarily, but at this point it seems like the Medivac count is, well, big enough for most of these Terran bio units to share a plane with one friend each. Yeah, and at this point, it's just a numbers game, right? herO has been doing a phenomenal job in this game. Maybe he was forced to bring out the golden minerals to make it happen, but you know what? He made it happen, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I think now looking at the total sum of the game, if Kjær had just gotten one tank, literally only 1 and put on the high ground, he probably would have had a much better time. 2, obviously, also would have been very nice to have, but just 1 to make sure those stalkers could not snipe so easily, get into that proper position that makes a guy like herO just, easy breezy. Let's pop a couple of Marauders, pop a couple Medivacs. If there's a tank firing from the high ground, he just can't do that. And then the amount of bio would have quickly increased to an amount that would not die to a basic Protoss army. Instead, all those little pinpricks happened, and then the follow-up with the charge lots to more so seal the deal. It was wonderful control of the game from herO, but at the end of the day, I think I also can say that herO was not Cure was not expecting the follow-up. If he had, yeah, tank would have been really nice, right?
Yeah, Tanker 2 definitely would have been very helpful against the Stalker shenanigans right there from herO. Either way, though, it almost looked like it was going to be a quick 3-0 in this particular series, and now we find ourselves in game number 5. So we've seen a wide variety of strategies. Cure mostly going for, well, some variety in the early game, I suppose, not really mixing up his unit composition or anything drastic like that, but here's a replay from this particular series. The Zealots getting some really good charges in, right? And even though none of these fights are particularly great, like you just end up losing too many SCVs over time. At some point, I think there were like 19 SCVs remaining versus 50-something probes, and you just don't have enough economy to sustain it.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, it just was effective. It was effective strategy from herO in a way that the first game could not deliver something. So Cure was able to macro normally and say, okay, no problem, because herO was playing that in a macro sense. herO bringing out the aggression on top of the strategy to kind of confuzzle the Terran, make them go, I don't know, should I get a tank, should I not get a tank? And then punishing them, actually getting on their side of the map and attacking them, I think was the big difference. So this is it's a very hard game to pull off, by the way, guys, before we shout out like Protoss overpowered. It's a very difficult game to pick off. If herO kills 5 less Marauders because his micro is a little less than perfect, his charge follow-up probably looks really bad.
Are you saying Protoss is not overpowered, Zombie Grub? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
According to Twitch chat, it's just like, whichever one won, right?
Whoever wins is overpowered. That's how it goes. That's how it's gone, though, ever since I started watching StarCraft II. It's been 13 years. Whoever is winning, it's not because they played good. It's because whatever they're playing is too strong.
Of course, yes. Not that wasn't very, very well done, micro. No. The Protoss unit's just really, really good. Game number 5, though. Awesome to see this happen after the first 2 games were absolute stops. herO's strategy combining with his aggression, finally delivering on the herO that we know and love. In the top left, looking for that reverse sweep, he is herO.
And his opponent down here on the bottom right of Dragon Skills. That's the final map in his best of 5 series. He is Cure. Yeah, I think on the overall, right, we can both agree that Cure has been the more impressive player, just because the way that herO has been winning is almost with some tricks, right? Going for some high Templar drops here and there, and crossing his fingers, going for strategies where he's hoping that his opponent doesn't realize exactly what's going on and that he can't deal with what exactly is going on. But obviously, that's part of the strategy, right, that herO has been going for. Is there something like that you can really do on Dragon Skills, though?
Well, you definitely aren't taking any gold bases.
Yeah.
For sure. I think... No, it is more difficult. It is more difficult because I think we've seen herO try on Dragon Scales to do some of these strategy surprises with combined aggression, and then it just isn't as effective. And more Cure should be, I guess, likely to really just hole up and defend at the consequence of missing a mid-game timing, because he probably is still better in the late game. But I guess this is where, even though we've never even hit the late game, really, we got close to it in game 1. This is where I have to mention, for all the people who think that Protoss is underpowered in the mid game, whether you're right or not, whatever, a lot of Terrans hate the late game, right? So it does sometimes flip over at that point. So Cure might not be actually so confident to just say, oh no, I'll just play super, super defensive, turtle all the time, and then I'll guarantee win because the late game is in my favor. He might not be thinking that at all.
So herO has figured out a way to bring this into a more aggressive match once again, as he's proxied his second pylon on the other side of the map. In the meantime, we had Cure going for an engineering bay blocking the natural that I almost felt like wasn't actually blocking the Nexus. I almost kind of felt like the Nexus could still be squeezed in between there, but I guess it was a full wall. Either way, or a full block rather, he did go for the third Nexus right now as his first expansion, and in the meantime, he's now proxying a Stargate on the other side of the map as well. I mean, we were talking about it. How can herO make this game crazy? Well, Cure may have just given him a way to do so.
Right. Cure is still high ground expanding, which is good news for him. Yeah. Just because he can make sure all of his Marines that he pumps out is in the main base. But this is going to get kind of weird. Stargate response to the NG block with the third base Nexus is not uncommon, but then you would never know if it is proxied. You're trying to harass the third base so much. So the Oracle could do a lot of damage.
Okay, so keeping that third base alive is obviously going to be quite important. That Oracle is going to be flying straight into the opponent's base. There's a bunker over there on top of the high ground. There are a couple Reapers out as well, so they're the only units that are available at this point for our Terran, and both of them are inside of the bunker. Marines will be going into the bunker that is on top of the high ground here. Okay, well, that's one that's one Reaper down. They'll be going into the bunker that's on top of the high ground in the main base of the Terran here soon. There's nothing, though. There's nothing available just yet to push back an Oracle.
No, 2 Marines is not enough, and 1 Marine at a time is definitely not enough.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with the bunker. Oh, this is going to be so effective. Cure just was such a late reactor, right? Pumping out those 2 Reapers, and then, of course, having no idea that this is what his opponent was doing. But even as he changes over to a Cyclone from a tank, it was because it just started. So it's not going to pop out anytime soon.
He only killed 2 SCVs, though. He only killed 2 SCVs and 2 Marines right there. I think it could have gone a little deeper. He probably was afraid of that Cyclone popping out already, but he decided to retreat really quickly.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. I thought that was wide open territory. He might have even been paranoid of a Widow Mine having popped out before the Tech Lab was added, just because, the timings could be difficult to read. But no, that was maybe an opportunity missed. But overall, Cure's aggression has not really worked out, right? So don't lose sight of that.
No, for sure. Now, he's been shut down over at the third base location of Protoss, and obviously, eventually, herO can just take his natural, and then everything will feel relatively comfortable. But once again, this is herO we're talking about. He seems to have regained some of his confidence here, and now he's once again in his opponent's face. This is where herO is incredibly scary. Obviously, this still requires Stellar Micro, and it's easy to accidentally mess up, but he's ready.
Well, Cure might have just pulled back well enough in time and pulled the SCVs to the front as well, but they were supposed to be repairing. Well, I guess it maybe doesn't matter. Well, do they want to repair? No, okay, I guess not. I thought
they were thinking about it too.
For sure. I guess half and half. Like maybe they should better hold position than repair. Well, either way, it was a hold and one that was costlier for herO. Lost both Oracles.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. He now decides to take his natural expansion here as the third base. As long as these adepts don't go in the main, there shouldn't be that many concerns right here for Cure, who now is going to be able to play this a little bit more defensively, right? He's made 1 more Reaper, which is kind of cute. Actually, is that the Reaper from the early game?
I think it is the basic Reaper.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, so they made 2 Reapers, or he made right here 2 Reapers in total, and apparently he managed to sneak back home. He's going to get a little bit of scouting information on the other side of the map.
He's going to get a probe, my dude. He's going to get 2 probes, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We had 3. Yeah. I mean, he's clearly not that interested in scouting in the main base, so he's just like having a field day here.
Yeah, I thought he was maybe going to figure out whether or not the opponent made a third, but apparently that's a safe assumption to make. Honestly, that Reaper, that was, very effective. 4 probes going down right there for a unit that normally just sort of dies in the first half second of a fight. Not bad.
Not bad at all. And yeah, I think the assumption of a third base is pretty fair in a game like this with the developing Phoenix counts. 2-base Colossus play is not as safe if your third base is your second base. So more likely going to be going into Phoenix Charge, I would say. I guess you could still go into Phoenix Colossus and then get that third base too. But the point is, it is on the way, and Cure probably figures that out. What Cure doesn't figure out is how likely herO is to just literally make all the Zealots, not actually produce maybe that many probes. Like, oh no, they're just harassing. Okay, I like that better.
Yeah.
It's like hero's gonna do that crazy thing again and just rush in. No, just setting them up preemptively.
The Phoenix count is slowly growing. We do have the charge follow-up here as well from herO, so not going straight into the blink here, but instead we're going to go for the Zealots, trying to make use of... Oh, he gets a Viking. Trying to make use of that proxy pylon that he planted down there at, well, the first possibility, right? He made that very quickly. So charge is going to finish up, plus 1 armor is going to finish up here as well very soon for the Protoss. Question is though, can he just throw all of those units inside of the opponent's base? Because that wall off at the front is kind of scary.
That's the thing, right? Like, I take back what I took back. herO is building the Zealots as if he is going to try and just send them into the natural, but then he is producing probes and he's getting gases, so it's not very dedicated. So it keeps on confusing, because the only reason I'm even doubting that those are only harassing units is because it is herO. Otherwise, it'd just be like, oh, harassing units, harassing units. herO's a weird dude. Nah, he is just gonna wait for that army to actually move out and then, well, either pounce on tanks that are lagging behind or go for the run-by.
Okay, so we've got the Storm follow-up once again. That worked out really well on altitude, so... Wait, was it altitude? I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, it worked well in one of the previous games of this series, and he decides to transition towards that once again. Viking in the main base will get shut down, so at least not a ton of counter-attack damage here. But Cure manages to macro up, right? That 3rd command center right now is about to finish up. He's going into the Ghost Academy, so counters are being made to what the Protoss player is producing.
Yes. Cure would be very unfortunate to actually move out, as he has no EMPs, and herO is about to have Storm. But assuming that he does just chill, get his 3rd base up, he will probably have those EMPs just in time. If herO decides to be aggressive, which he'll probably be in some way, either full-on aggressive with the army, although he's getting a 4th Nexus, or with some harassing units. Zealots in the natural, Phoenix in the main, maybe War Prism with Storm. Not going to be the most effective Zealot run by. He mistimed that, thought that Cure was moving out. Cure was just kind of positioning.
Yeah, would have been excellent if Cure was moving out, because then Storm would have been available at home to defend as well. Now instead we see like 5 Zealots getting sacrificed right there for a whole lot of nothing. Actually, maybe even more than that. Only the Adepts remain. Some of them even, okay, almost getting misrallied back home as well. Cure sitting back, like you were pointing out, that is certainly the best move here. Get those ghosts out. Make sure that you have EMP available, because EMP is amazing against High Templar, but it's also really good against Zealots.
That's true. Yep. Everything in herO's army is going to be vulnerable to the EMPs, even the Phoenix, right? So herO would have...
Oh, what?
Oh my god, what? What is
He
that
just
doing?
misrallied part of his army there. I guess he army hotkeyed some of it back. It was moving on the left side of the map, and I thought it was going on a little adventure there, maybe to the 3rd base of the Protoss, but that was a really unfortunate start. Cure still leading as far as the supply count goes, but we'll find out here if he needed those units.
Yeah, I wonder if he had them on a 2nd hotkey and then he replaced it with ghosts, or thought he replaced it with the ghost. But either way, attack is incoming. EMPs are very effective. SCV's having to be pulled off the right side and through the 3rd base. This is just a lot of Storm. Units barely surviving, however, and without reinforcements, that is the real kicker here. herO will not be able to win this engagement.
There's no prism on the back of it. The prism right now coming up. I think herO saw that opportunity and he decided, you know what, I need to go right here, right now, but I wonder if we should have waited until that prism was out so he could actually reinforce in the middle of that fight. Cure obviously with the defender's advantage, all of those units of his popping out of those barracks that are very close by, and this is now going to come at the cost of what seems to be the 4th Nexus.
Well, the Zealots could do some serious damage. Yeah, not being controlled. Well, what are Mine's Marines? We'll see. Cure is continuing to aggress to the natural, actually. He's moving on to the natural, looking for the probes, to get the Templar archives. He's got to be fearful of High Templars soaking up energy somewhere, waiting to catch him by surprise, but so far so good. There's the High Templars going to be destroyed, the Templar archives rather, and the charge lots run by. Not going to get cleaned up. Okay, it's a little base tradey then.
Yeah, those Zealots are doing so much work on the other side of the map. I sort of expected reinforcements to get rid of that. Here's the Storms coming out of that prism, but, I mean, he walked into it right there at the end once again. I wouldn't mind seeing him lift up and just getting out of here, because that is an awful lot of low HP Terran units. Instead, the Zealots, or sorry, the Marauders and the Marines will stim away there. the ghosts pretending that they have Stimpack too. They wanted to be part of the club, but some of them got picked off.
Those medevacs are dry. Cure might want to take that into account as he tries to be aggressive once again. Wordmine's going to get a pretty nice shots, and he so far sees no high Templars, but you never know what's in those. That Warp Prism, exactly. There they are, getting the Storm. Even with a decent split, there's just so few healing units that are actually going on here. 2 medevacs with juice, barely helping out once again. And it looks like just the power of Bio underneath any healing whatsoever is once again going to keep Cure's army alive. herO, not enough backup to the Storm to get those final hits to kill the units, is now on the ropes, and I don't see him recovering from this particular fight.
Yeah, when you see Protoss players throwing away 20 probes for no apparent reason at all, they just sacrifice themselves to the Terran Bio.
Oh my God.
You know that it's a bad situation for Protoss. herO made it look very close. He certainly had a shot in this game as well, but in the end, there can only be one winner, and that winner is Cure.
What a wacky game 5, though. I mean, Cure making this huge mistake.
Yeah.
How much supply was that? Just not even firing. They didn't even trade at all. And then still winning defensively because herO made a huge mistake. Not getting a Warp Prism right there. Yeah, and then the ensuing base trade-ish scenario, I think, just caused some, well, difficult to call scenarios on the Protoss side. So Cure will end up taking this series at the end of the day. Any last thoughts there, Loco?
Nah, really fun series. Let's hear from the boys at the desk.
That's right. Thank you very much. And a main fixture for sure. Not quite how I thought this series was going to go down in terms of the flow of the games and what each player brought. But joining me here to talk about this one, Rotterdam and Artosis. I'll start with you, Artosis, because it felt to me watching that series that Cure overall, and I don't often say this, was the better player. I mean, obviously he wins the series as a whole, but just the way in which he's playing out this series as a whole, he was really, really strong in a lot of those games. Whereas when herO was kind of getting some wins, a lot of hidden gold bases here and there, some cheeky things going on. What did you make of the series?
Well, I don't think anyone can disagree with what you just said there, James. I'm on Team Maru is the greatest player in the world, but honestly, Cure's TVP when he's on is probably my favorite. Like, you can't. Yeah, he looks so unbeatable. Those first 2 games, ridiculous. Like when he got tricked by the hidden base, and then like there's even the hallucinated Colossus, and he's making Vikings he doesn't need, and then he's like, yeah, I don't know, I just macro well and engage better than anybody. It was unbelievable to watch, and I mean, without any doubt, Cure deserves to go to Gamers 8.
Yeah, definitely. Watching that, Roddy, honestly, I think we've all said it during the course of this series, but Cure's PvT or TVP looks awesome. It looks really fun to watch.
Yeah, especially the late game army control has been fantastic. And normally I want to say the game sense is there as well, but he definitely did get tricked a couple of times. I just love this series as a whole, not just by Cure, because it always takes 2 to tango. Yeah. And herO really did make this an absolutely fantastic series. And what made it, I think, fantastic overall is just that so many games were hard to call, right? Like they both had big monstrous armies, and you just don't know who's going to win. And even in that final game, man, I felt that if herO would have landed slightly bigger storms towards the end, maybe he cleans it up, maybe he still wins the series. It really was the fireworks that we were hoping for.
I did think at the start of this, after watching game 2, I thought, well, Cure's probably going to take this 3-0. He looks unbelievable. And then I looked down for a little bit, then looked back up Artosis, and all of a sudden I saw 2 gold bases taken by herO in that thing. I was like, what is going on here? It was wild.
Well, herO certainly found his stride in that game. I mean, that was about as pure herO as you can really get. And I definitely agreed with some of the analysis of Loco and Zombie Grub, where it's like, herO is very good with stalkers. He should be trying to dictate the flow of the game, and you definitely saw him doing a bit better there. These more passive macro games, he had a harder time with, because I think, like, if you just give Cure a little bit of time, it seems like he just, the way that he engages with these armies, it's like he's zoomed out and he can see the whole map at once. It's insane, because we can zoom out and see it, and it's like, wait, is he really microing this quickly on that many fronts?
Yeah, and here we are in game number 4, and you know, once 2 gold bases get really wound up and going for Cure on the side of the defense, it's very difficult to make it work here, Roddy, with the amount of overwhelming numbers hero's going to hit him with.
It is, but we can't forget that that's still very all-in and committed. And if herO doesn't break him there, honestly, that would have been a completely different game. This is the fight that I was alluding to, by the way, because the supplies were honestly very close. And Zealot counterattack did a lot of damage. And if those storms were just a little bit bigger, then I generally believe with a big warp in, Archon Zealot can push Cure back. And then Cure would be in a bit of trouble because he would have been behind economically. It was just a very fun best of 5 where I think herO sometimes maybe got a tiny bit unlucky as well. We can't forget about Babylon. Like if the Phoenixes catch these medevacts, they won't be able to unload in the main base. They don't kill 2 Phoenix and 6 probes and lost mining time. And in PvT, it is so important if you play Phoenix that the first 6-7 minutes go your way and it all feels very clean. Unfortunately for herO, it just wasn't.
An unbelievable series. That means Cure is making his way to Gamers 8. Congratulations to him. As you said, Artosis, absolutely 100% deserved from the skill and prowess that we've seen there from Cure. And now we have herO versus Bunny and Ragnarok versus Creator. These are 2 qualification matches that are going to happen tomorrow. Artosis, what do you make of these 2 matches?
Honestly, I think we're going to get a couple more Protoss players going through. You know, I'm a big fan of Creator's Protoss versus Zerg. I think that you really saw that earlier as well, that he's a lot stronger in that matchup. And with the quality that herO just put out against Cure, because look, I love Bunny, but I do think Cure is another level up as far as Terran versus Protoss. So if herO brings the same quality he brought today where he pushes Cure to the absolute limits game 5, I do favor him against Bunny, but I think it'll be a very good match.
All right, well, that does it for our Korean bracket here for today. Thanks, guys. Time to go to a break, and when we return, we have 2 best of 5s coming from the world bracket. We're going to get 2 more players moving through to Gamers 8 here at Gamers Without Borders.